Greetings. Welcome to another video. Um, I've been faced with those questions, and so when you do videos talking about Indian sovereignty, rightfully so, people are going to want to know, like, what are you talking about? What do I do? You know, this is the part where it becomes, shall we say, interactive. What I mean by that is um, there is no for Indians, I haven't come across a step-by-step process to Indian sovereignty. We are in a system that is doing everything it can to deflect from that conversation. Now, it made some Indians, and it wants you to think that that's what Indian sovereignty is. Me kicking your ass on a reservation, that's the sovereignty you had before we arrived. And you have to say to yourself, that cannot have been the situation before the colonizer arrived. It could not have been that I was stuck on some piece of my own land that stretches from here to there to there to there, the whole width and breadth of America, and you telling me that what's available for me is this little reservation over here with you all around me, telling me that you can come up on my reservation at your will and do you, but I don't have the same rights that you have. So you're a colonizer telling me that here's my part of my land. And once you step off of that, you fair game for me. So rightfully so, Indians are like, is that what we supposed to go for? My eternal message is that should be an easy hell no, right? It is. We know the answer, but then we're back to the question: how do we get to what we are supposed to have? And I hear that. I really, really, really hear that. I wish that I had uh the like somebody wrote it all out, right? Unfortunately, this is the challenge for all Indians. It really, but it is a worthwhile challenge. So this video will not have all the answers, but we can at least get some clues, right? So that's what we're going to attempt to do. When I said it's interactive, it's going to require you doing some reading. It's going to require you, well, you do it already if you watch my videos, but watching videos that are sometimes long and lengthy, you know, uh, you have to go at it as if it's for you, you know? So that's what I think I've been doing. However, yes, it should leave me with some idea that I can at least share, you know? So I'm going to share my screen, talking about sharing. Okay. Now, I mentioned this woman almost as much as I talk about George Floyd, I think. This is Anna Reitz. Everything you've heard me say about the Constitution, I have learned from this woman. I bought her book, and I would suggest that you get her book as well. If you're asking for a process or a procedure, now the thing is, we're going to have to curtail it or shall we say, fine tune it to what our situation is. Now, she's doing it as a state national. We have to do it as Indians, right? So when I say that she is key, because she can help us to understand where the government fucked up, you see. See, right now, Indians, for the most part, are like, well, we just got to find that statute and that code and them regulations. No, this is not what this woman is saying. Now, okay, that is not going to be your set of laws. Commercial laws are not laws for men and women of the land. They're for corporations. In essence, what this government did was turn everybody into a corporation so that we would no longer have rights of men and women, right? Law of the land, right? So she is calling that fraud out. She's doing it for the immigrants and for people who were party to the Constitution. So this woman can teach us something about the process. I know we just started. Let me take a pause. But we're going to, continue and look at some of the procedures that she has laid out. Thank you. I shall return. I'm back. Let's see. So we were talking about meeting Anna. Her website is a bit kind of all over the place, but just find a place and land and just start reading. I've heard some folks say that how do I well, it's more because how do I say, it's something that has not really been done. I think we can safely say so. Some of the basics would, I guess, be the basic steps. So why don't we read this together, okay? So this is basically an introduction that we clicked on. Let's see, I want to make sure. Introduction, right? Yeah, this is the introduction because there's some. So we'll read together. There are 390 million people in America, and they all have problems. You are all grown-ups and have to move forward together to solve the problems set before us all. We have to seek peace, knowing that no peace can exist without justice. So our diligent research of many years' duration proves beyond any rational doubt that our lawful government has been usurped by governmental services corporations in the business of selling us, guess what? More governmental services. In the process, they have set up a web of deceits and false legal claims designed to support and expedite their racketeering and use of armed force to make us buy and pay for more and more and more governmental services. Obamacare is only a recent and obvious example. The time has now come for Americans to wake up, restore their lawful government on the land, enforce the organic and public law of this country, and put the facts before all people, including our own. These wrongs have been visited upon us in the international jurisdiction of the sea. I want to stop for a minute. I'm sorry. You know, I tend to do that. Bear with me. I'll try to keep it to a minimum. International. Now, what I want to say about that is she's saying this is a jurisdiction of the sea. For the Indians out there that think that ADRIP is, you know, I'm sorry, UNDRIP is the end all be all, really, it is not. It might be a temporary band-aid. And I'm not going to say I haven't seen it used, you know, but in the long run, it is an international type of jurisdiction of the sea. All international jurisdictions are of the sea. What Indians want is things that pertain to the land. So we have to begin to understand, if we didn't create ADRIP or UNDRIP, we don't have any authority over ADRIP or UNDRIP. It has authority over us. And it calls us, definitely in the case of UNDRIP. ADRIP, I'm not sure about, but I know that it wasn't Copper Colors that started ADRIP. And that's really just basic, that basic, breakdown that we can safely go by. If we didn't create it, that means we're going to go under someone who did. And do they have the interest of Copper Colored? How much you want to bet? Who's willing to bet me that they like what? Any amount of money. Well, within reason. I would win, okay? Just don't want to, you know. These wrongs have been visited upon us in the international jurisdiction of the sea. The wrongs have come through the international jurisdiction of the sea as a result of gross breach of trust by our international trustee in that jurisdiction, the British monarch, who has been in breach of trust with respect to the British people, the Americans, the Canadians, and the Australians for 150 years. These are old frauds that have gone unnoticed and quietly perpetuated for generations, so that they have accrued a patina, never saw that word, of acceptability. We are told that that's the way we do things. That's the way we've always done things. But according to massive amounts of public records worldwide, that simply is not true. There are many people who have caught on to bits and pieces of this gigantic fraud, and they have sounded the alarm. There are others who have misinterpreted such evidence and through ignorance have promoted their own pet theory without bothering to examine the rest of the forest of lies we are faced with. My job here is to present you with the facts. Of course, I often add my own reasoning or opinion about the facts, and you are welcome to disagree. That said, I have work to do and a life to lead. I am not available to consult about individual court cases unless they present sweeping public interest issues that impact us all, or all of us. I am also not here to argue with you about anything. If you have verifiable facts, bring them forward. If not, there is no point ranting at me as if I created this mess or am responsible for anyone else's inaction. I am not your public servant. I am not offering to represent you in any manner whatsoever, apart from the fact that I am one of the free, sovereign, and independent people of the United States. And whatever good I do for myself in my own behalf also accrues to all those others who are free, sovereign, and independent people of the United States by maxim of law and the requirements of our organic law, which provides equal protection. I am not an oath keeper nor oath breaker either. I do my best to say yes or no and claim nothing more. I am not a guru, angel, devil, lawyer, etc., etc. I am a great grandma from Big Lake, Alaska, who can read and think like millions of other Americans, and for whatever reasons, mostly a 17-year-long battle with the IRS. I decided to research the mess this country is in and how we got here. So she's saying she's been in a 17-year battle with the IRS, and she decided to do some research. The bare bones of that research and our resulting claim against the British Crown, various national governments, the American Bar Association, and at least 5 international banking cartels is presented in our sworn and published affidavit. You know something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause, available on Amazon.com for around $20. Get it on Amazon here. I am not involved in the marketing, printing, or distribution, and receive a whopping 5% of the profit, whatever it is. Read the affidavit and do your own due diligence to research the facts before you come to me with any assumptions. Thank you very much, Judge Anna. Well, let's look at a book. I did purchase this item. What is this? I did not open this. We don't need to go there. You know something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause. It's a great book. Let's see if we could read the back of it. And as she said, it's about, well, it went up to $25. Let me see if they have a blurb on the back. Oh, they do, but it's a rather small. And I don't feel like I don't have a touch screen. This thing I'm working with is not a touch screen. So I can't blow it up for you. So I can't read that small writing. So let's just leave it at, this is the book. What can you do with this book? You can change, my eyes have focused. You can change the world. Give copies to the bureaucrats, local, state, and federal. Remind them who they really work for. Okay. That's the book. So I'm glad, that I'm bringing this up, because when someone comes to ask me, what do we do? First, you have to have an understanding that something is wrong, like the book says, and then you have to get familiar with what happened. You have to get familiar with that. I read enough of the book to have a general idea of the fraud. We could look inside. Let's look inside. Do they have a good preview? Because sometimes they don't really have a great preview. The president of the United States says one thing and then does the exact opposite repeatedly, day after day. Members of Congress pass laws they admittedly don't read and then exempt themselves from the consequences. Millions of foreign nationals are entering the country illegally and receiving payouts from the Social Security Administration, having never contributed a dime to the fraud. Our military veterans are going hungry to bed, being denied basic medical care, education, and other benefits they were promised. Our elderly are being forced out of their homes and into grossly substandard nursing home facilities. American student test scores are in a free fall. The local police are ramming around in military jeeps, bristling with tactical weapons acting like Rambo on speed, and we might add shooting at copper-colored people, namely males. Millions upon millions of American homes are foreclosed upon and left standing empty to decay, while more millions upon millions of Americans are left homeless. The buying power of the dollar is in the toilet. The cost of basic commodities continues to skyrocket. The cost of oil and gas continues to be high in the middle of a worldwide supply glut. Coal, ash, and dangerous industrial waste product is being sprayed on us. Another poisonous industrial waste, fluoride, outlawed for over a decade throughout Europe, is being added to our drinking water. Mad scientists are being allowed to market genetically modified plants that internally manufacture their own pesticides and permanently poison our food supply. The banks are running entire governments as Ponzi schemes based on legal tender laws, identity theft, and security fraud. The court system is running a gambling racket out of our courthouses that profits itself from putting people in jail. All the major news media outlets in America are owned and operated by foreigners who feed us nothing but sex and death and propaganda. And the judges and lawyers are helping expedite all of this, while the queen, well, she's gone now, but her replacement, the president, the Congress, the governors, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and all the rest of the people who are on our payroll and who are in the way of in one way or another responsible for this mess, are standing around looking stupid. We present an American affidavit of probable cause in which we describe the wrongs and injuries which have been promulgated against us and against our countrymen as a result of this misadministration of the global estate trust and British Crown, breach of trust by international trustees, and fraud committed against us by our own employees, allies, and individuals claiming to represent us. So the jigsaw puzzle. The information supporting this affidavit have been compiled for many years by many Americans who have suffered every kind of outrage and injustice. We can't possibly name them all. Some are dead, some are in prison, but they each came forward under dire threat and contributed their piece to the puzzle. And there's you. The truth is not relative. The truth is absolute. However, we are mammals. Okay. The best we can do is tell the truth to the best of our knowledge and ability. This we have done and are doing. That's a disclaimer. And, you know, some of us will rightfully question being called mammals. It's all right. It's still, the fraud is still there. So there's the table of contents. You could take a snapshot if you want, but we're not going to read everything. But it's very, the font is very inviting for reading, shall we say. And I'll just try to going forward. The Indian answer. This is interesting. The Indian answer. Now, Anna, she's not been educated on who the Indians really are, but it's interesting. It would be nice to read that chapter just to see what she says. So this is just to give you the preview. You can stop and the trusts are created when one party, the donor, places assets in the care of another party, the trustee,
for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. And little do we know, they're roughly basing this on religion. So the global trust, I guess, is what they call it. We know that it's not a globe, but we roll with it just to get the information, right? So God is the donor. This is what the church basically, this is how they take, you know, authority. They name God as the donor of the earth, right? He gave the earth. That's the asset. God is the donor. Earth is the asset. To Adam, the trustee. Well, Indians would debate this as well, rightfully so. But again, she's fighting her cause. We have to fight our cause. So we got the donor, which is God, the asset, which is earth, the trustee is Adam. I would say it would be indigenous people. And for all future generations, as those are the beneficiary, the future generations. So the people who are controlling are basically calling jurisdiction over our land, want their generations to be the beneficiary. In other words, I'm a royal, and I'm thinking that I have to leave an entire country to my offspring. Whoever thought they owned that country, they are mistaken, because I'm somehow that between the church and the monarchy, it has been established that they own everything, right? Because you're the dirty little sinner, right? You've turned against God. Again, the God that you never knew, you turned against. So they provided you with the God that you offended, that you never knew about. Then all of a sudden, their children become the beneficiary of your birthright, right? Right. Well, no, until we stand up for real. See, now when we go into the corporation, that is not us reclaiming that birthright. It's working with the ones who stole our land, who are still trying to put us in a setup where we never really reclaim what was taken from us. You get lost in the corporate merry-go-round. But that corporation is coming from your colonizer. There's no way that it's going to work to get us back to sovereignty. That's just not possible. Now, they will call it sovereignty, but we as American Indians by now should know it's not sovereignty. So we take our turns. As adults, we are trustees. As children, we are beneficiaries. As elders, we are donors. So I think what she's doing is kind of saying that that's how the church would if the church were acting as it should, this would be basically the role it could take, if it were for the people. But as we see, the church that is saying all of this, that she's basically creating this scenario from, that church already condemned us. So now it's like basically they're saying we really don't get to be part of this. They're talking about their generations to come, not the Indians. What happens to the Indians is what's happening to the American so-called Negro. You're fighting all the time for some vanishing civil rights because you've never been told that you're entitled to, excuse me, a birthright, which would make you the landlord, and the Pope couldn't come and start claiming your land and talking about this is for his what do you call it, for his beneficiaries, right? So they're quoting quote saying the 1302 brainstorm. Let's see. God gave the earth to Adam. Adam gave it to his kids. All came down to Jesus, who gave it to Peter in his absence, who passed on the responsibility to me, the Pope.
I am the global trustee. Now, this all sounds crazy, but I think the idea is she's letting us know this is basically the doctrine of discovery. So you can laugh and say this woman's crazy. Not really. This would be what the doctrine of discovery would basically be saying. And notice the children of Adam. Well, right there, we have to know that that's not indigenous. Adam is basically our child. So it would go to us, okay? But anyway, the global estate trust is born. The Unum Sanctum of 1302 creates the world's first and largest express trust by Boniface VIII. The Romanus Pontifex 1455, first testamentary trust published by Nicholas V. The Aeterni Regis 1481, second testamentary trust published by Sixtus IV. The Convocation 1537. Well, between 1481 and this convocation, we know that that's when Columbus came in the name of bringing all of this, right? We became part of their global trust, right? So that was published by Paul III. The trust includes the air jurisdiction. Living and dead souls, spirits, angels, demons, ideas are global in nature, are controlled by the Pope and his appointees. So the Pope has the air jurisdiction, but what ends up being is that he's really over everything, you know. I didn't post the video, but I read something where the Pope had something to do with annulling the Magna Carta. So the Pope had the power to pull out the Magna Carta when the people forced King William, I think it was it King William? King John? And the Magna Carta basically saying that you can't unrightfully tax us and take advantage of us, blah, 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 blah. This is all in England. And I was surprised to see that the Pope intervened on behalf of the king. Now, I didn't post the video, but when I do, you will read it in that video. So the Pope already is on the wrong side of the people, right? Because actually it was a bunch of barons. That's another level of nobility. The barons were actually complaining about the king taking advantage. And so they forced him to sign the Magna Carta. The Pope steps in and relieves the king by saying, nope, this was signed under duress, so he's going to annul it. In other words, you can continue to tax these barons and send me the profits, I guess is the deal, because I've just annulled the Magna Carta. Okay, so the sea jurisdiction, all vessels, mariners, sailors, merchants, creatures of the sea are international in nature, are controlled by British monarchs. The land jurisdiction, all resources of the land, including people, animals, plants, and minerals, are national in nature. So that's not international. And are controlled by the Spanish king, if there is one. See, when Columbus came here, it was all about Spain, right? And people want to know how the Moors are involved. That's how they're involved. Okay? And them Caucasians didn't come here without help. You best believe that. Okay? This has always been a black on black crime scene, whether people want to live in reality or not. But one thing for sure, we've been quote unquote fighting the white man for how long now? Is it getting us anywhere? Is it time to look beyond the white man and start really thinking about King James and what his race was? And the fact that he was working with, he would have been someone who under this Pope system. And back then the popes were just as black as he was.
It's not a black and white thing, y'all, unless you're talking about status. And you know the black status is the low one, so anybody can be white when it's status. If we don't get out of this racist propaganda, we never gonna get anywhere. Okay, we got to start looking really beyond what's or seems so evident. So those are the jurisdictions that we're dealing with. And basically the land jurisdiction, this is the one that we're being taken off of, because as we see, it's a national. They want us to be an international. That's why I have to say what I say about UNDRIP, because it's not dealing with land. It's just somebody giving some nice lip service, but then you end up in the sea and air jurisdictions, not the land. So who's going to stand up for the land? That would be us when we finally figure out we're the only ones that have the motivation to want our land back. These people ain't going to do it. They're doing everything to make you forget that you're standing on land. So that's the question. How do we do this? So we're going to just try to get some clues. I guess we cannot read the whole book. Let's see though, but maybe we should get as much as we can that's available, right? So there you have the jurisdictions. The corporation has us in a dual citizenship that's basically sea jurisdiction and air jurisdiction, municipal and territorial. But they never talk about this one. This is the one that Indians have to begin to, we're the ones that will talk that, because we're the people of this land, the original people of the land. So one answer to the question, how do we do this? We stand up and claim who we are first. That's the very first thing. It's a declaration. That's the first thing we got to do. It's a declaration of we're going to claim that we are the ones that, it's not a Spanish king. See, they have it, it's controlled by the Spanish king. We have to challenge that. Well, what gave him the control? This Pope system? Well, that doesn't supersede us. Remember, the Pope denounced the doctrine of discovery, y'all. So all this bullshit we looking at has been made null and void. But if we don't do anything, well, the bullshit is going to continue. They're going to say, well, we told y'all we wasn't about this, but y'all never did nothing but try to get back into the sea jurisdiction by becoming a corporation. That's what y'all did. So you Indians, you have a whole land jurisdiction over here, but you want to be in the sea jurisdiction up here. And that's going to lead you to be in the air jurisdiction over here as well, because it's the dual citizenship, basically. But ain't nobody talking about the land jurisdiction. Indians, this is why it's beneficial to get a basic education, read that book, read this book, and then have the basic, to know that you are of the land jurisdiction, then it does not belong. That's what we got to challenge. And we have the Pope denouncing the doctrine of discovery. So that's could be somewhere in our, we have to do our own paperwork, right? In a declaration, basically. So that the first paperwork that we're going to do is a form of a declaration that will be sent to basically representatives of the state and then representatives. So it has to be sent to these two jurisdictions. So let them know I'm not in your jurisdiction, but you will not treat me like I'm a ward of the state because I have first birthright. So step one would be somewhere in the area of a declaration. And what we would be disputing is that a Spanish king owns our land when we've been here. We were here according to the 1828 dictionary. The Europeans found us here. They condemned us based on a religion that we never practiced. If you're going to condemn me, at least use my own religion. But no, not when you're a colonizer. But thankfully, that would be part of our argument. Sorry, my nose is a little stuffy. Excuse me. Okay.
Okay. Now they're gonna, ask me, did you do this? You're saying to do this. Did you do this? I did it as a state national. Why I came to the videos, part of my coming to the videos is the realization that I have to do it as an American Indian, copper color. So yes, I did do what I'm telling you to do, but I'm just saying, when will we have the Indian version of Anna? Now, I'm not going to say that I'm her. This woman is she knows way more than I do. Okay, let me just say like that. But then, we have our people who make fun of you for learning. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. And you're not helping me. So how's that work? So it's one of those things where you go with what you know. So at the time, I only knew to get out of a burning house, right? They had a setup, right? So when I come to the video, all I can tell you is ours is very similar to what the state nationals have done, what Anna is doing, right? So there was a series of declarations that were sent out and revocations and what do you call it? Repatriating to the state jurisdiction. Now that I'm more aware, I have to repatriate to the Indian not taxed status. You see, the state nationals are going to their uplink, which is the state. Indians don't have such a setup. That's what makes this a little challenging. Who's our uplink? Well, that's why we have to go with what we do have is the Constitution, where we are Indians not taxed, and we read that is a status. It's not a tax exemption. It's a status. So we have to parlay to the powers that be that we are reclaiming our birthright status. Before the doctrine of discovery made us wards of your state in some way, shape, or form, or made us nationless. And you continued to make us nationless by creating a Black, Negro colored African-American status. So we have to parlay that to the state and to the federal. Right now, Anna's doing a lot of talking to the Pope. So I think we might have to let him know. And see, the good thing is when we let him know, we can throw back his words. Now, you just denounced the doctrine of discovery. Thank you. So now he might be the one we really need to start talking to in our declaration. This is the man that he just denounced the doctrine of discovery. So basically, if we make a declaration to him, now we're going to have the declarations is going to have to go to several of these authorities, so-called. They're not our authorities, but we're going to address them, with whatever they call themselves. This is what the state nationals are doing, and this is all I can tell you. Now, you can ridicule me if you want to. Again, ain't nobody showed me the way to do it for an Indian, right? So I got to go with what I know. And if you think that that's laughable, go on and laugh yourself to sleep, because you surely didn't wake up and you're still a slave, most likely. So go and laugh all you want. And even the ones who say they're not paying taxes, under what are you tax exempt? Well, that's not Indian not taxed. And I hate to get like that, because I know that there's so many people ready to tear you down, right? I ain't going to be torn down. I got a whole state and federal to do that. I ain't going to let some Negroes do that. So again, we might have to go straight to the top. We might have to start sending our declaration to the Pope and then have it on record that we sent it. That's what you do. You got to that's what the that's what you're going to get notarized. So all of this becomes part of our documentation that I done told you who I am. Now, you can fight me if you want. You'll be committing acts of genocide against indigenous people, but you call it, in your jurisdiction, you call it indigenous people. In our jurisdiction, we are Indian not taxed.
So whatever we do, y'all, we better make sure our words are right and exact. Do not start making up words for the same thing. Yeah. That's when the fraud steps in. Because if it's not written in the Constitution, it does not exist in the contract. The only way you have a case is if you have a contract where you can show the name game. So that would be something else we would have to consider. If I'm Indian, not taxed, what the fuck is a Native American? Okay, so there's your jurisdictions. The one on the bottom is the one that belonged to us, copper colored. Because what? We were found here by the European. Okay? Those other two is what erased this third one and make us think that this is all we have available to us. We are Indian, not taxed, and we fall in the land jurisdiction, and that's what we're not being told. Does not belong to all resources of the land, including people. Well, that's people is not Indians. People is not men and women. See, you gotta, they word spells. Animals, plants, and minerals are national in nature and are controlled by the Spanish king. Well, that's what doctrine of discovery bullshit, which the doctrine of discovery was denounced. It does not belong to the Spanish king. If there was one, if there is one. Oh, okay. The law forms. Each jurisdiction has its own law forms. The jurisdiction of the air has only 3 real laws. 1, keep the peace. 2, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. 3, so long as it does not take away another's freedom, life, liberty, or other such harm. Do what you like and let others enjoy their free will too. There's also the law of the land and the law of the sea. National law and the land Americans fly the civil flag with vertical stripes. Now, we Indians, this is where we're not part of this, right? So she's talking about state and federal and what they were supposed to be, right? We don't have, that's not our flag either, right? Indians? That's the corporation. Well, I'll put you this way. They were supposed to operate for sovereigns. They've changed the script, flipped the script, made themselves the sovereigns, and we're like the help. Okay, we're their help. They flipped the script on, and it did include us because Indians got included in this. So this part wouldn't really apply to us. This actually, none of really this would. When she says land jurisdiction, for the foreigner, their land is broken up into states. For the Indian, it's wherever we stand. And although they took Algonquins off on paper, Algonquins are still here in the Northeast Woodland area. It's just that we've been reclassified as Black. So here's basically, this is to show us the system that they're going by. We're not supposed to be in their system, but they do recognize the jurisdictions, right? That third one, again, that's where we challenge all of this, especially since the doctrine of discovery, okay, has been denounced. Just have some thoughts about the air and sea as well, because it's not like when we're on the land, we're not going to have, we can't go and see, or we have nothing. As far as I'm concerned, the land includes the sea and the air. because they all work together. You can't live, one can't be without the other. But see, this is their shenanigans. But anyway, let's not get too lost there. The trust operates by providing service. Now, see, all of this she's talking about applies to people of the state. The federal wasn't even supposed to have a people. They were supposed to be a services agency. But once they made United States citizens, then they have a people that they dominate, which was supposed to be the state nationals. So this is their system. The trust operates by providing services. One, postal services via postal districts and post offices. Now, this wouldn't apply to us either because we're not in their system. So we have two systems on the land once Indians get their government up and running. There's going to be two systems. You're going to have our own postal, setup, right? Or if we do contract them, we're going to have a separate contract, right? So these are things we're going to have to hash out. The bottom line is we have rights here. And if you're on our land and trying to fight us, then you're working again toward the annihilation of the people of land. And you claim that that's not what you're trying to do. So then don't do it. So if you have services that we can use, we will pay you for them, but we're not in your system. That doesn't mean you have to. You were supposed to be a services agency from the beginning. So there's no way that me using a service makes you own me like you usually do, or what you've been doing for about 150 years. But again, we really don't want to deal with police shit. Here I see number 4 is domestic policer. See, we have to have our own shit. Now, I think we could probably still use the post services until we get one set up, right? Legal services, hell no. No. Well, I'm surprised to see that. Well, they were supposed to be served, but it would be, common law, basically. So I'm surprised that she's looking for their legal services here. But she really talks against what they're doing. And the Bar Association is foreign, but it was supposed, in other words, even if they're foreign, by the time they interface with the state nationals, they were supposed to only be providing a service, not dominating us. So the trust they were supposed to provide services, okay? All this and more was being accomplished by the Global Estate Trust. See, we have to question this global thing. Did we get pulled in some global setup that we did not want to be in? That's what our argument as copper colors would be. Like, we didn't agree to be in a global trust. If the Pope set it up, he's not our uplink. So everything this is where this would apply to the state nationals more than us. So I don't, let's skip down, okay? So, okay. I want to go through this because I just want people to get a mind of how it comes together, So let's we're gonna read it, but remember, as an Indian, most of it is not applying to you. We're just reading how they figured they own our shit, right? Basically, and what the little setup they had. Now, it was supposed to work with us, but instead it erased us. It paper genocided us. We became a non-issue, and they had free run of our land. Okay, so let's read this. We're just trying to get some basics here. All this and more was being accomplished, the Global Trust, whatever, by the Global Estate Trust, the services, more than 200 years before the American Revolution. Well, that's interesting. I would think this would be after the Revolution. The trust is the largest corporate conglomerate and interlocking trust dictatorate on Earth, with 4 administrative hubs operated as independent international city-states. This trust operates out of the Vatican, Westminster, DC, and the United Nations. The inner city of London, also known as Westminster, operates legal and banking services. They were supposed to provide services, right? The Washington, D.C. municipality operates defense services. The United Nations provides trade, treaty, and negotiation services for its members. And when I tell you that Africa is all up in there, and yet you're still languishing in your country as a fucking ward, that's when you realize, what is Africa doing? Is she not telling this United Nations? She has 54 seats in the fucking United Nations. What is she doing to help you Negroes? You Pan-African fuck-ups. Why isn't Africa asking a lot of questions about us being represented as American Indians in this? Well, number one, we're not supposed to be in their system, okay? So sometimes I forget that as well. Pardon. But I'm just saying, this shows that there is an intentional disregard for the copper-colored Americans, okay? By all, including Africa. Wake the fuck up. So the United Nations provides trade, treaty, and they busted up our treaties, right? So I'll say it one more time. Africa is the biggest presence in the United Nations. If they were our brother, I think they would want to stand up for us there and address a lot of the issues that we have. But you know what? Again, that would be international shit. We have to first be national before we even think about being international. So the idea is, if you don't have a quote unquote nationality, then none of this is going to apply to you, right? That's what Africa could say. Well, you're not a nation, so you're black. We are Nigerian. See, all the 54 seats they have is each of their nations. It's not called Africans. The African group. Well, in other words, 54 countries, not the whole. They don't call themselves just one entity like they try to get us in America to just always be part of a nebulous blob of everything and everybody. In Africa, they actually do split up into nations. So each country is represented in the United Nations. See, but we'll never get that concept because we're so busy being African. So once again, we are being named after a continent, but not a nation. Well, we're going to have to create our own nation, Indians. I've talked a lot about Iroquois, but I have to be real and say I'm sure not every single Iroquois is down with the hijack. So those Iroquois we would have to come together with other Indians, and we got to decide what we will call ourselves. At this point, we don't speak Algonquin or Iroquois. So that was another way that everything was fucked up, man. We couldn't, I'm sure we weren't allowed to speak our languages. We just got to find the proof of that. Because that would show that, yeah, that's how you break up. If we were divided into linguistic groups, but now our language was outlawed, then that was another way that this corporation helped to dissolve our tribal affiliations. So yeah, this is like rough ideas of how we would begin to trace our sovereignty. It begins with our declaration, right? And I think we should go straight to the Pope. Yeah. Yeah. We are allowed to declare who we are, you know, and I don't think there's a limit. So for instance, if you change your designation or whatever, your status, it's allowable. There's no, I've never heard that there's a number of times that you can't do it, right? So these independent city-states together create the empire of the city. See, we're talking about a one world order situation. They are pulling in America without American Indians into this. See, when we have three different parts of the world trying to make one city the defense, like, so America is basically the defense because DC is in our, but then United Nations is too. So we got two branches here in America. So somebody's using our landmass to be at least 2/3 of their world order, because the inner city of London, that's the legal and banking. And through those two things is basically what's, fucking us up, the legal and the banking, because legal is just, that's going to be corporate law. That's going to be UCC. At the bottom line, here's how we break down the law that they're using on us. Because it's a form of contract. When, signing the birth certificate, signing the driver's licenses, and signing for the voter registration, all that, though, you created contracts, and those contracts are what's pulling you into we could say, no, this is a law of the, no, it's not. You're in a contract, and the contract supersedes. If you sign on to it, that means you're waiving something. You're waiving your right to own your child if you make a birth certificate, right? Someone else. It's a stock certificate of some sort. So that ends up, what I'm trying to say is, all of we're in, it's a form of corporate law, because it's all dealing with contracts. This the contracts that's doing this. That's why they call it paperwork, but those are contracts. Okay? So we're not under the Constitution, because we've signed on into a series of contracts that we thinking that they're going to still protect our constitutional rights. No, they're not trying to go by that shit. Because if they did, they would have not reclassified American Indians. They've completely nullified law of the land. So this is just interesting. As I'm looking at this, I'm realizing part of what Indians are going to have to think about is, we don't want to be part of this trio here. Maybe I don't even know how to say it. How do you extricate your land from something that part of the people on the land is involved in this shit and you're not? How do you can't be a house divided? And so somehow it seems to me we have to invite the people that want to be part of this. We have to invite them to leave America out. The Indians were never part of this. We were brought into this under duress and through a series of terrorism. Okay? But it's interesting that 2/3 of this thing is on our landmass, DC and the UN, or United Nations. And here she puts, we are all part of it, like it or not, for the past 700 years. See, well, Indians were dragged into this. We don't understand this bullshit. I don't think we ever did. And whoever put us in it, they knew that this shit was going to happen, is what I really honestly believe. I think this was a Negropean thing. It was. That's what King James was, a Negropean. And I really advise Indians start using that term, because it's much more accurate. We need to stop putting a white face on a black one. It was a Negropean, not a European, a Negropean. that put us in this mess. So she says we are part of it, like it or not. Well, it's through a whole list of deceit that we are part of it. We would have never agreed to this. And Indians were not even a factor. We were too busy being condemned by this papal system, because that's what it looks like. Because, oh, wait a minute. Wait. So Rome is part of it. Rome is the headquarters. I'm sorry. Oops. See, Rome is the headquarters. The trust is the largest conglomerate and interlocking trust directorate on earth, with four hubs operate. I'm sorry, why did I leave the Vatican out? Must be some kind of Vatican spell came upon me, and I did not include. See, I'm saying to myself, well, something is missing. That's why I think if you were to ask me what's the first step of Indians reclaiming their sovereignty, we got to write the Pope, y'all. But we got to have a record of it. We got to have a declaration, and we must mention his denouncing the doctrine of discovery. In other words, we understand now that all of that shit is dead. We will be looking for our land, a return of our land to us as in our jurisdiction. We, as now being seen that we are not under the doctrine of discovery anymore. Thank you very much. We don't see that we wish to be part of the quote unquote global, what is it, estates. We have nothing to, in fact, we originally did not believe in well, we probably don't want to get all into that, hurt the Pope feelings and stuff. If you want to love up on Jesus, that is your prerogative, right? We don't know nothing about that. Okay, you can have your little love fest with Jesus, but please don't take my land in the midst of this, please. So step one, I'm freestyle, y'all. Y'all can disagree if you want. Ain't nobody telling me. I'm trying to, I'm going with what I know. And I know that declarations are a huge part of telling the system who you are and having a record of it through having it, you could have it witnessed. I think you could, but I think a notary will do just fine. But, you could have some witnesses or whatever, you could do it. I believe we would be able to do it for our family, because we're not individuals. We have families. So that would reflect our families. If we were organized enough, we could do it as a completely sovereign tribe, right? But not a corporate tribe. You see, we can't do it, y'all. We have to get out. How many times do I need to try? Is it this hard to understand that we were something before the colonizer arrived? Now, we refer to the 1828 dictionary, but we don't go further. We don't go far enough to say there was a whole existence of us before the colonizer as well. Now, we like to refer to what they called us, but we never refer to what we were. We were not corporations when they found us here. So if we're going back to becoming Indians of the land, get corporation out of your mind. Get it out of your mind. That is a European construct that you're loving on and dependent upon. It's not going to happen. Not in any corporation. You're just going to be in a sea jurisdiction. You need land. Only we can resurrect the land. Every other entity on our land is going to try to use those jurisdictions of the air and the sea to try to erase the land. They don't want the land to be part of it. That's why we were reclassified. So when you go back to the 1828 dictionary, you better be willing to go back to all of it. All this and more was being accomplished by the Global Estate Trust more than 200 years before the American Revolution. The trust is the largest corporate conglomerate and interlocking trust directorate on earth. It's corporate. So when you get into a corporate world, the Vatican, the Westminsters, the DC districts, and the United Nations, them is your uplinks, boo. Do you not get that? What is so hard to understand about this? That why we don't want to be part of this corporate thing? No. The trust is the largest corporate conglomerate and interlocking trust directorate on earth, with 4 administrative hubs operated as independent international city-states. Independent international city-states. Now we know that DC is not even, it's not even part of the United States, right? Yet it has pulled all of us into its jurisdiction. Not sure about the deal of the United Nations. But I know the District of Columbia, that now the United Nations is in New York State, right? And she talks about that. I don't know how that breaks down, but it's interesting that New York seems to be pulled into this shit, where these other things, entities, are not the city of London. So London is also, it's just interesting that the District of Columbia, why do you need 2 in our part? Is it that the United Nations is what's really pulling us in, where the District of Columbia is not really part of the United States, really, or something? Or, you know, but that's where the UN I don't know. It's their fraud game. I don't know this shit, right? Okay. The Global Estate Trust comes to America in 1492. That's Doctrine of the Discovery, y'all. That's why in our if we can organize as a group of sovereign Indians, telling the Pope we understand that you have graciously denounced the Doctrine of Discovery. We are the original people, the descendants of the original people of the Americas, and we are taking our land under our jurisdiction because it's ours. This whole thing was built on some kind of Bible construct, where the Pope is the church behind that Bible. Yes, they did put together your Bible. Yes, they did put together your Bible, the Catholic Church. I told you, mama is mama. I don't care if you're Protestant, Baptist, Seventh-day, whatever. You working with that book, that's your mama. That's my mama. Okay, that could be like that sitcom. That's my mama, the Catholic Church. So the Pope knows, or he should know, that we didn't have any obligation to any deity that he established in Europe and Africa, in Ethiopia, whatever. That had nothing to do with us. So our land being taken from us because of it was a crime against Indians, American Indians. We have to have access to our natural resources because this is our land. It's the only land we get. We don't want to infringe on your lands of Europe and Africa. We have our own land, so we will need access to our resources without question. That's what being a sovereign means. And what's going to happen? Everybody who's not an Indian is going to be pissed the fuck off. Sorry. I can't come to your land and do what the fuck you did to mine. So go back home if you don't like it. If you want anything that's on my land or in my land, you have to come to me for it or pay me for it. That's the way of the world, baby. It ain't nothing we don't hate the player, hate the game. You don't like that? You want to own my shit forever and ever and ever and ever? Well, how that look to my descendants? What the fuck? You got us in a death spell for fucking ever? Who gave you the right? And if you saying that it's your God, clearly it's not a God for me. The Global Estate Trust comes to America in 1492 to 1776. Private investment for public advancement. Private investment for public advancement. No, private investment for personal gain. The king, the crown, the investors. The dance of public and private beings. During these years, large commercial investment companies formed under royal privilege. Corporation, baby. What is a wait. Are you telling me a corporation is royal privilege when I tell y'all we don't need to be a fucking corporation? Royal privilege. Well, you know that can't be the copper color. They don't never we are royal. God damn it. What happened? Now we were, but in their system, hell to the nana, right? I used to listen to Sister Rhonda. I picked up a lot of her stuff. During these years, large commercial investment companies formed under royal privilege corporation throughout England for the purpose of developing the land and resources of the North America. Baby, woo! Wait, you in England trying to figure out what to do with my continent? What about yours, though? During these years, large commercial investment companies formed under royal privilege or corporation. They're interchangeable. Throughout England for the purpose of developing the land and resources. Developing the land. We got this, yo. We don't need you. Develop our land. You weren't developing our land. You were stealing. England, throughout England, for the purpose of developing the land and resources of the North American continent. So eager were English investors for new opportunities that the crown, not the monarch's investment company, the crown, had to establish investment districts throughout England and assign colonial territories for investors from each district in England to fund. Let's read that again. During these years, 1492 to 1776, large commercial investment companies formed under royal privilege corporation throughout England for the purpose, you on your continent figuring out how to develop my land. So they make it sound like this is before the doctrine of discovery, though. Well, what's the king and the crown? Ain't that the same thing? The king, the crown, and investors.
During these years, large commercial investment companies formed under royal privilege corporation throughout England for the purpose of developing the land and resources of the North American continent. So eager were English investors for new opportunities. It's called greed, y'all, that the crown, not the monarch. She's differentiating the crown. So maybe she's saying that the crown comes from El Papa. The crown, not the monarch. The monarch's investment company. So they're hiding behind an investment company. Had to establish investment districts throughout England and assign colonial territories. It sounds like they had districts in England that were signing parts of America for investors from each district to fund in England. Each district. Thus, we had the Virginia Company and the New England Company and various other investment companies drawing in private investment money from designated locales in England to back colonization of the New World. Most early investors were buoyed or afloat, I guess, by the hope that gold would be found in North America, similar to the discoveries made by the Spanish in South America. Oh, Lord. So they were dreaming about what happened in South America, that it could happen to them in North America. So in their fantasy island world, we are a new world. So they have to call it new because they want to give the impression this thing was just located. It didn't exist before. Ain't no people there except those savages that need Jesus. So they don't count. Undeveloped. They don't know what to do with that. But they're sinners, so they don't need it. God don't want them to have this, or he put them on that land with all them riches. He must have not meant for them to have it, because look, I'm wearing a fucking crown. Don't I own everything? No, boo-boo, you don't. I think we have to understand that even referring to them as king is a huge misnomer especially for American Indians. He would be Charles for us, right? Because he's not our king, right? Am I saying something wrong? As far from what I recall, we're not a monarchy. But you see, with all this shenangling or finagling with the jurisdiction, somehow we've been taken off the land, reclassified so there's no connection to the land, so that the crown could play monopoly with our landmass. They done made us a game board and shit. Wait a minute. Most early investors were buoyed by the hope that gold would be found in North America, similar to the discoveries made by the Spanish in South America. French investment companies under the French monarchy also staked out claims and formed trading companies. Aside from hopes of finding gold, these commodity trading companies focused on development of natural resources, fish, timber, mining, and agriculture to begin with. So you there, and these MFers are just unloading on your land, talking about they looking for fish, timber, mining, agriculture. The colonists came as members of the military, as wealthy adventurers,
like Elon Musk and that ilk, Gates of hell and that ilk. Wealthy adventurers, and most commonly as bond servants, indentured to serve their commercial sponsors for a period of years in return for their transportation, tools, food, and other goods needed to settle the land. They have a whole narrative, and it's just so funny how we're conveniently not talked about in this, as if we were not there. Well, we weren't, because I think as early as then, they knew that they were going to call us something else, like colored, black, and all of that. But then the 1828 dictionary says there were copper colored found here when the Europeans arrived. I wonder, do they try to limit that to Columbus, though? You know what I'm saying? That could be another way that they try to weasel out of our, recognizing our identity. Um, Okay. Each trading company depended on a charter from their monarch. So that's how that worked. They were trading companies. So all of this is being really under the tutelage of who? King James and whoever was king of France. Well, we saw that King James. Well, where's that thing? See, this is where we start to. I got so many things open here. Oh, there you go. There you go. So we saw here that somehow he's a king of France. Is that what? Why is France on here? So I think at some point it's like the French and the Brits were just one and the same. Ireland is also here. I made the mistake of calling Hibernia Spain, but it's all the same family. But Hibernia is actually Ireland. But it's just interesting that, have we ever heard that he was king of France as well? How come, why isn't that not said? Why is France on here? And somehow he's a king, right? So why is France here? France, right here. France. Well, I don't know why they put a T there. France, Francais. I don't know. Brittany. There's Britain upside down or whatever. Let me see. You want to make sure that's Britain? Brittany. Go all around the world. Come on. The Magna, the Jacobite. That Jacobus, that means he's Jacobite. He's referring to the Jacobites, okay? The Jacobites were the ones who, what were they again? I talk about this all the time. They were the ones that believed in a one type of deity, whereas it was the Jacobites who were the monophysites. So they were more about, they weren't really like Christians because they didn't believe in Trinity so much. They were more about one. That they were the monophysites. The Jacobites were monophysites. So basically, they're they're strict monotheism. Whereas Christianity is kind of a little bit not what the Jacobites were about. They didn't think that there was a Trinity, or they were. So these are the ones that went the furthest away from tradition, because traditionally in Tamari we had a Trinity as well. That's where the Trinity came from. It wasn't the Father, Son, or Holy Spirit. It was Osar, Oset, and Heru. Okay. Heru was the heir. That's why you don't hear about him, because they're not into heirs. They want to change heirs and supplant heirs. That's what Jacob did. That's why I think they love the name Jacob, Jacobite, because Jacob takes birthrights. And there you have a nice, lovely picture of someone who did just that in the Americas, right? He took your birthright under some idea that his God wanted him to do that. Then why would we be here if your God intended this land to be yours? Well, they have to give you, they're going to tell you why. You see, but the problem is that's their version of the story, right? Jacobites. Okay. That's why the Hebrew Israelites, big up this King James, because, well, the more serious Hebrew Israelites don't believe in a Yeshua or Jesus, so, but, it's just all over the place. Some of them believe in Jesus, some of them don't, all of this confusion, So let's go back. So they had to get a charter from a king, like King James, right? From their monarch. And each monarch depended on land claims made in their behalf by the commercial companies and military missions. So wait a minute, the monarchs depended on land claims made in their behalf by the commercial company. When I tell you corporations are just a tool of the colonizer, but we all want to be into just create a corporation and then you'll be, no, you will not be sorry. Because he's the one that's created this ship that you on. I don't know what's so hard to understand about that. Indians, we call ourselves creators, right? Yet we don't want to create our own government. How'd that work, though? You're the creators. You brag about it all the damn time. You talk about what you made and everything you did. Well, why can't you make your own government? What's so hard about that? You have the footing. You have the footing. You're sovereign. They just don't want to acknowledge it. They had to in the Constitution, though. That's how they eased in. They knew they was going to rip that shit to shreds. This corporation, they knew what they had. They knew what they were going to do. Okay. So they make a reference to us because they had to. That's how they get their foot in the door. And they tell us that we're not taxed. Why? Because we're not part. It was really, they were the ones that's supposed to have, quote unquote, reservations on our land. They were the ones that were supposed to be limited to a fucking reservation, not us. But yet that's what Indians want to settle for. They think that's returning to the ancestors what was taken. Living in a whole corporate monarch construct is just fine. Again, we are not advocating violence, so stop it. Stop thinking that this is anti-government and all that bullshit. We have a footing. That's why this is not terrorism. This is not anti-government. It's what the government was supposed to be. You got to stop being scared of this damn entity, man, because the laws protect us from it. Yes, it's a scary boogeyman like the Wiz and the Wizard of Oz. Yes, it is, right? But when you look behind the curtain and you see what the fuck this is, come on now. They bent and twisted words, used legalese. That's how they became the big boogeyman. They made you think you don't have a footing. As an Indian not taxed, that is your footing. But we were supposed to build on that, not them. What they broke us up. We were like walking around like, literally just like individuals with beast of no nation, right? Just didn't have just me by myself and I, right? Because that's what breaking up the tribes do. So now you don't have a voice really, because it's just you, and your voice is it's not, they know that's not big enough to really make the change needed for you to have a land. Like, you know, one person don't need, you know, that much, but as a tribe, yeah, now you're talking about, no, this, we had this land for our farm, for our food, whatever. So we have a footing, is what I'm trying to say. They just bent up and twisted up meanings and redefined what shit means, and boom, ended up being a United States citizen. And that's when they really came for us. That's what really did it. Before that, they were just terrorizing us, making it very hard to be an Indian. But once they had that United States citizen, that's when they could kick our tails legally. Notice the Ku Klux Klan was around basically, if I'm getting this correct, that's before, was that before? That might, I might have to look at that again. But like, it no, because they yeah, I think 1868 is when they did this. When was the, I think the Ku Klux, yeah, they were after 1868, right? But and either way, we were terrorized off the land to give up the farms, you know, losing the farms, you know, for to become part of the Democratic Party and all of that crap. You know, like, we're not supposed to be. They just made it where we had no choice, or it looked like and felt like we had no choice but to just this big entity growing and growing, like the Iroquois talking about the turtle growing and growing and growing. So then you think there's nothing here but this thing, and I don't have anything. You have you have your birthright. You have Indian not taxed as a status. Okay. So this video is long and we didn't even get past step one yet. A very plausible step one. Now, there's many ways to skin a cat, right? This is not something I'm saying is etched in stone, but I'm going by, but I know what the state nationals are doing. And I'm telling you right now, Anna has been writing to the Pope like crazy. But see, she doesn't have the same authority as an Indian. You hear me? She can get somewhat challenged, right? Because I think the Pope look at her like, girl, you from Europe. What you talking about? Go sit there. I mean, he's not doing it, but I'm sure it's floating in his mind like, wow, she really fighting. Thank God she's not an Indian. You know? But she did say that one time she got accused, that somebody came to her and said she's a foreigner. What are you talking about? So she got checked, but she had, of course, she knew how to call on the Constitution, you know, and stuff like that. But they were questioning her because it's like, and that was when another red flag went off, a light bulb went off in my head. It's like, that means an Indian would have more pull than Anna. And it really, it's little clues you get, and they sit with you. And I'll never forget when she said that. She said somebody challenged her in what she was doing for the state nationals because they said she's a foreigner. She's like German descent. In other words, why are you fighting for these niggers? That they didn't say that, but you know, it was implied, heavily implied. This ain't your land, girl. Go sit down. Go back to Germany, whatever. So they were trying to dismiss her, but she's way too smart for that. You know, she knows her right. And truth be told, I mean, the Constitution is dealing with foreigners. So there's just no way around that. But I still do think they were not supposed to overtake our land. It was some kind of business deal went way wrong because they erased us from the contract. So when you don't have another party, you can say they abandoned the land, we don't know where the Indians went. They died from the smallpox, they drowned in the sea. Wink wink. I guess we got to take it now because there ain't nobody here, so we gonna have to run this piece, you know. I think I'm gonna, this is a 3-hour, and again, I only you know, it's a rocky road, y'all. I do think that's a very important first step. And I have to tell you that the ancestors are gracious. I never thought of that until now. So I know the ancestors are doing all they can, to, when a question comes, well, how do we do this? After being frustrated, feeling like, man, I wish I had a better answer, or man, I wish I knew all the steps and I could just say, you do this, you do that, do that. But really, it's going to take us as a collective, because this land, how many Indians was on America? We need people who understand that this whole thing is wrong. Being a corporation and being on a reservation, it's just settling for less than what is owed to us. And if we miss this opportunity, who's going to ever get it right? By the time we get all incorporated, they're going to have laws that we have to go by because we're in their jurisdiction that we cannot get out of. If you contract, like if you do that, they're going to say, we settled this with you already. Sit your ass down. You didn't want your land back. You wanted to be a little corporation, and we gave that to you. Go on that reservation before I come and snatch that from you. That's what we're going to get if we go in under their jurisdiction. We have to have sovereignty to do this. There's no other way around it. You can't be a slave and call the shots. Aside from the hopes of finding gold, these commodity trading companies focused on development of natural resources, fish, timber, mining, agriculture to begin with. The colonists came as members of the military. It was a military operation, as wealthy adventurers, and most commonly as bond servants indentured to serve their commercial sponsors for a period of years in return for their transportation, tools, food, and other goods needed to settle the land. They just had this all worked out, right? Each trading company depended on a charter from their monarch, and each monarch depended on land claims made in their behalf by the commercial companies. So they came in through commerce and military missions. It's like they really go hand in hand, right? For the better part of 2 centuries, England, France, and Spain fought over and claimed chunks of North and South America, but the basic premise of public military power extended in support of private commercial interests remained the same. Let's read that again. For the better part of 2 centuries, England, France, and we just saw that King James, pretty much that's him, right? Why else is France on his, whatever you call that thing? And Spain fought over and claimed chunks of North and South America. But the basic premise of public military power extended in support of private commercial interests remain the same. So she calls it mercenary. Like, in other words, these military were working for commercial entities. That's what a mercenary is. It's not the people of the land fighting you. It's a commercial entity. We're drowning in a sea of commerce, and our asses being kicked by commerce. And we think it's going to work in our behalf. No, it's not. It's just going to take us off the land and pull us into a jurisdiction where they call all the shots, and you don't have a footing on land. This same arrangement continues unabated to the present day. The government uses the military to support and promote commercial expansion, and the commercial expansion pays for the government and the military. See the problem? This triumvirate of government, military, commercial interest is a closed and self-perpetuating system. The commercial interests pay the government. So now we see how the commercial entities help, right?
like the big Amazons and all of that, right? The government pays the military. The military works to protect the government, not the people, and the commercial interest. This is an education we need to have, y'all. And again, it's not because we're part of it, but we get to see how the fraud unfolded on our landmass. The people who consume the goods, we're just consumers, that the commercial interests produce, and who also provide the labor necessary to harvest, clean, process, transport, manufacture goods, are not really part of the loop. Yeah, baby, you the slave, boo. And I think when we incorporate, all we're doing is perpetuating. And no, I don't think, I know. We're perpetuating the system. It's not an Indian system. I don't know how do I have to say it in Algonquin or some shit? Or in Iroquois? We and the natural resources of our planet are the actual source of all the moolah the commercial interests have. But they get into the point where they feel they don't need us, because at some point Indians wake up, right? Well, half wake up because they think we wake up talking about, well, my dream is to become a corporation. It's like, baby, go back to sleep, dream a little more, and come again. Okay, that was the nightmare. Now wait for the dream. Okay, so they get into where they want robots, right? But little did we know, the plan was to make us the robots. And I think we know how that's going to be done, right? Does anybody have a clue out there? How you're going to be made into AI, or how your body can be made to host nanotechnology? Do we have a clue how that's happening as we basically speak? Okay. So we're the source of the moolah, but they don't want to have to pay for you, right? It's much better to have somebody doing all this work and getting paid for what they're doing and don't have to pay them. They're just a robot. Some law will try to claim. Hey, you don't have to pay robots. Just give them some of that GMO shit that we cooking up. They won't even be able to digest real food no more. So how can they be real men and women of the land when we done turned them into Westworld characters? We and the natural resources are part of our planet. I'm sorry, we, the natural resources, you can leave. We and the natural resources of our planet are the actual source of all the moolah the commercial interests have, and which they use to pay the government and the military. But our power to control or even have input into this system is extremely limited. Yeah, as a United States citizen, it's extremely limited. Once every 2 to 4 or 6 years, we get to choose a new government official who is supposed to champion our interests, which leaves us totally dependent on the good character and intelligence of the individuals elected. Beyond that, we are free to gripe, and those elected are free to ignore us. A man is no less a slave because he is allowed to choose a new master once in a term of years. So you're no less a slave just because you choose a new master. And you don't even choose him. We know that, right? All that problems they have in counting the ballots and all that shit. That's why a democracy will never work. It's supposed to be a republic. Democracy is a numbers game. So whoever voted this way or that way, your rights don't count any longer. It was majority rule, basically. Your rights don't matter anyway because you're not in the Constitution. But it's even more profound with this system where you can't even choose your slave master. They know who they want to get. They need something to get done, and they get the right man for the job. And it looks like you picked him, but it doesn't matter because he's selected from whoever put him on the auction block, whatever you want to call it, sale, what do you call it? The election block. They was already pre-selected. So we're coming to the horns of our dilemma. With less than 30% of the people voting, in the general elections, there is no consensus supporting the current political regime in Washington, D.C. This 27? Okay, so it jumps to different parts of the book. I didn't know we'd spend this long, but I think it was worth it. I think I'm gonna close out for now because I don't really want a long ass video, and I do need to, you know, follow up and um so this is really the last page, but I don't think it is 27. Okay, I just wasn't sure if they skipped pages. So we'll read this and then we'll close from now. And I thank you for watching till next time. But the horns of our dilemma. With less than 30% of the people voting in the general elections, there is no consensus supporting the current political regime in Washington, D.C. Even among those who do continue to participate in the electoral process, there is no unity and a great deal of discontent. Millions of Americans have simply voted with their feet. We appear to be on the horns of a dilemma, unwilling to support what is and unable to find our way forward to reform it. And we are still dealing with problems from a long time ago that people fail to address. Both the bulls and the chickens have come home to roost. And that is the end of the sample. But I can tell you that she does not. Part of the paperwork of the state nationals is a revocation of election, meaning you don't vote in they're not land soil jurisdictions, so you don't vote in their elections. Their president is not the president on the land soil jurisdiction. So basically it comes down to, once the state assemblies are assembled, and for Indians, what that would mean is that in each state we have to have a group of Indians standing on our sovereignty, like Anna has created a network of state nationals. But we will be Indians not taxed, basically, and we will have who we elect. That will be our president. If we want to use that model, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, I don't know if we can use their model. We had a similar model with the chiefdoms. What I'm saying is, it's like we're going to overlay this landmass with a government for us they cannot come to us and say that we're doing something wrong, because we are the first people of the land. They are the visitor that we would really love for them to go home now. Like, baby, I want to go to bed. Can y'all finish whatever you're doing and get the hell out of my house? They don't want to leave. After everything they've done to us, they still don't want to leave. They think this is their house. So all I can give you from what I know, and any Indians out there who start criticizing, your agency is showing, shall we say. Your agency is showing. If you find this, he doesn't know, blah, 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 blah. Well, what have you offered? All I'm seeing is a bunch of arguing. Now, I'm saying that Empress Holbert did a wonderful video, and I think again, she had Chief Alligator. The man was talking real shit, and I'm like, why can't we get Indians like that, man? And I think it on Chief Bethy's panel, they talked about boycotting. Now, we Indians have to really get real serious about boycotting. Real serious. Because I feel that there's going to be some kind of commerce thing going on where maybe the corporation might feel like, oh, you can't take part in our commerce, blah, blah, blah. Then we say, okay, we won't. And see how the revenues happen when we boycott one of your great multi-billion whatever. What would be nice, and I'm going to just say this real quick, it would be great if the technicians of our Indians could get a system that is comparable to Microsoft, because the way I see it, that is dominating right now everything. It's like, that's why our communication is so, I don't know. But it would be a private system. Like, even if they could put you this way, even if they did spy on us, what can you do? We are Indians of the land. You coming against us is looking mighty suspect, and it's looking mighty colonization, especially in the age of the doctrine of discovery being denounced. So be very mindful that you don't want to look like you're committing crimes against copper colors, or what you call indigenous. We are the American Indians. We like to stick to the Constitution on that, okay? We're not going to take your word spells. And I hope Indians understand we don't really need a whole lot of words to describe it. It's like, yes, there's a lot of different words that describe indigenous, but we don't want to use all of them because that's not what we contracted with. Apparently, it was the Indians, okay, in the contract. Once you start getting other words, you're creating other contracts that might not say what it says regarding Indians in the original contract. So we're going to use that contract, but we need it. Now, some Indians might say, well, if we get now, why we got to use the Constitution? Because that's going to show up the wrong. That's going to show the culpability, the fraud. We're going to show that we were immediately erased once this thing was written. Soon after, Indians disappeared and Native Americans appeared. So that's why we want to refer to the Constitution, because that's what keeps the big wizard in his place. The big Wizard of Oz, that checks that ass. Any other way, he's going to come at you like try to bring military and shit, talking about you against the nation. No, baby, the nation was against me. Let's get it correct, okay? So yeah, that's why we're going to stick to the Constitution and the wording in the Constitution. You want to be Aboriginal, that you're going to fall into the C jurisdiction, okay? I don't care that the word sounds so great and it was you, blah, blah, blah. It's not in the Constitution. And it is funny that it's in the United Nations document, because right there, that's kind of telling you again, they're sidestepping us. We already have a document called the Constitution that basically says these people ain't part of your shit. So them even not mentioning that word, you know it's a hijack. They don't create our laws for the umpteenth time. If somebody creates some laws for you that you say, oh, wow, I like those. When you go by them, you have now put yourself under whoever created that document. And if it was the United Nations, we just saw that they are part of the city state, what that is. And they still not really recognizing you. So if the UN UNDRIP was created by this thing that's part of this, what is this called again? The Global Estate Trust. So you're going to fall into their jurisdiction, which is not a national jurisdiction. Let's go back up here. Where's their jurisdiction? It's in the sea, right here. Sea jurisdiction, and then they have this air thing. They don't talk about the air too much, but both of them are really like, this is what the UN would fall in. ADRIP is too. Let's just be real. ADRIP, we know deep down in our soul that was not meant for us. I mean, yes, we'll use what we have, but at some point we're going to have to create one of our own. Because why? We don't want anything that we did not create, because it will pull us under whoever did create it. Rewind that part like 100 zillion times on this video. Just play it back over and over and over, because that is the gist of this. If we did not create it, then we will be under the ones who did. If we did not create it, we will be subject to the one who did. If we did not write it, we will be subject to the one who did. If we did not create it, we will be subject to the ones who did. Did we write it? Okay, so are we going to be the ones in control of it? That be a no. So what do Indians have to do? Get busy writing, declaring, talking to the Pope. And for those out there saying you talking some bullshit, you know what you're talking about, then don't do it. I'm going with what I know. If you know better, baby, do the video, I'll watch. Trust me, I will. You don't need to talk about me. Just do the work. Show me. If you know better, just show. No. Let's forget the clowning. We don't need that. That ain't doing that. Ain't nothing but wasting your breath. Just make your video and you lay out all the steps. Okay? How about that? And I'm sorry, this is not for the people who have asked me about this topic, about, you know, how, where to begin? What do we do? I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who will take this and then proceed to clown or try to clown a person for even attempting to talk about sovereignty. That's what we got going on. So we know that they're agents, right? Because if you weren't, you just tell us what, if you know better, then you will just lay it all out. Ain't nobody. Now, again, Empress, she started talking. Okay. I think Indigenous Education Channel. I just find them. I just enjoy watching them because the mother is a teacher, so she's very good at conveying, the history. If you get a chance to, I think they have a video coming Monday. Maybe I'll try to link it. I just think that they're a good source because I think between her and her son, they are talking outside of the corporation. The son has said things that I know that he's saying that does not apply to us. He said, he's given that kind of wording. He uses that kind of wording, and I know the brother is he's aware. He's aware. And a lot of us, I'm not criticizing us. I'm just talking about the ones who really are ready to attack you because you even talk about it. And they're just going to all, but some of us Indians genuinely really don't know. And I'm not talking to them either. You can't be criticized for not knowing. But again, a lot of our clownings will do that. They don't want us to talk like this, apparently. So that they have other interests that they're working for. Why make fun of an Indian talking about reclaiming our sovereignty? Then why are you here? If you're an Indian and you have a problem with someone trying to work out sovereignty in a way that we can understand what we're standing on, why not just talk about it instead of wasting the breath again of putting somebody down? I don't really care. At this point, even doing this video, I had my reservations. I don't, nobody wants to feel like, oh man, what am I misleading? I'm going with my gut, y'all. And that's all the answers really require me to do, really, for any of us to do. And I'm telling you right now, this is what the state national, they had a series of declarations that they sent to the secretary, I believe the Secretary of State, is it? And to DC. I would have to get that for you because those are the people that we would have to, maybe I'll write it. I'll really, just keep looking because I'll let you know maybe in the comment in the description box who they sent these declarations to. But I do think we better, for us, the Pope would be key, man. And that was something they just dropped in my head today. We got to acknowledge that he has denounced we got to let him know we heard you. And for that, now we are going to begin to establish our authority on the land. We will need land apportioned to us. that belong to us. We are without that doctrine of discovery, that means you don't represent us anymore before your God. We have a right to have our own gods, and we did. That's Tameri, but a lot of our Indians don't like to talk about Tameri. So I try to control that. I realize they ain't ready for that shit. Ain't nobody. But the bottom line is we still got the same goal of reclaiming our land. What else are we here for, y'all? You tell me. Are we supposed to ride with the colonizer so that he can always make money off us, and we working like dogs, ain't hardly getting paid for it, even on our own landmass? So I'm going to close. I'm making this now it's 3.5 hours. Sure enough, it is. So let me say, here's the cover of the book again. I'm telling you, it's not. I didn't finish the whole book, but I got very far in it. It's because it's very light on the eyes. I love the font that she chose. When you get the book, you'll see. It's probably, for me, it's the perfect font. I love the font that she chose. Maybe if you're lucky, I might even try to get the Kindle and just read maybe another chapter or something. Because this is the model, y'all. This is a woman who's fighting for sovereignty, not to be part of a corporation. So her model will work because we have the same gripe that she has against the corporation. It's basically the same fraud committed against all of us. We've all been reclassified. State nationals have been made into United States citizens. Yes, state citizens, also called nationals, state nationals, have been made over into United States citizens. Copper-colored Indians have been made over into colored, Negro, Black. So it's the same format of reclassification. That's why I know that a lot of what she's saying would apply to us fine, just fine. And the next thing is, I know declarations are involved that have to be notarized. And then you keep a copy because that's your public notice saying, what we have to say. Then we'd have to take some kind of authority, but let's close out for now. And I want to say that anything that was created in our name, we would still be entitled to that, but just not in their jurisdiction. But they'd still have to give it to us because they were using our name in fraud. But that name belongs to each and every one of us, whatever our name is. So if we have Social Security, which is what Anna says, we're sure enough entitled to it. Oh, yes, we are. That was taken directly out of our checks. So that would be most most certainly due us, that. But besides that, I just want to say this, we have to work it where we got to be able to show that now that we know who we are, if you have any good faith, you will work with us instead of against us. Because you working against us is continuing the doctrine of discovery, which has been denounced. Okay? So we don't really need to fret over what will we have. We're going to have everything that was taken from us. That's what you get. That's how justice works. Okay? So again, let me close this. Thank you for watching. Wish you peace, joy, health, wealth, your land back, your identity back, your sovereignty back, your real sovereignty, and all the great things. Thank you. Till next time.